Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about stress. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, I am a computer programmer and sometimes it seems that my mind is regressing. How do you handle burnout and stress? Well, I've gotten pretty far here, I have to say. There's actually only one thing that's left in myself to, as I've found, that causes me stress at a personal level, and I don't really know how to deal with it. But I can give you all the things I'm doing that sort of keeps, well, almost 90% of the time I'm pretty happy and relaxed. So the first thing you sort of should consider, at the very least, if you ask me, is what is the purpose behind what you're doing? Why are you doing the thing that you are doing? Because most of the stress and burnout that you get comes from this idea that you have something to prove to other people. And usually it's self-imposed, because once you get to a point where you can produce results, because the burnout and the stress as a junior software developer is very difficult. I would say it's almost impossible for you to sort of to deal with that. It's in a sense, I look at it as getting into shape. There is no way for you to go from like overweight, because I hope that this makes sense to you. If you were to try to go from being very fat to being like very slim and so forth at your own pace, then you can take almost every long you want, and as long as you're losing some weight, you're going to finally get there. But because it doesn't really matter how fast you get there. But as with everything that has a stakeholder, everything from school to jobs to all of this stuff, there is a timeline, and that timeline is set not on your terms, it's set on your company's terms, which means that you need to get to a certain level in a certain amount of time. And this is where it gets complicated, because if you're really good, it's going to be like a cakewalk for you. Like, it's going to be nothing to you, because you're going to be able to get to a point where you can be productive fairly within what's reasonable for in terms of expectations from the company. But if you're slower than the expectations or something like that, there's going to be a mismatch, and that always causes stress, because you always have something to prove in the beginning of things. And so you can't really do much in terms of just having the opinion that, oh, I have nothing to prove to anybody, because everybody in the beginning, that's probably all you're going to think about. You can do other things, we're going to talk about those things as well, but what the goal for you should be is to get to a point where you realize that, hey, I meet all my deadlines, I write code that is not maybe bug free, but usually it works, and I am following the practices that are expected of me, I'm doing a good job. When you get to that point, you have to realize that now you have fulfilled the requirements for doing professional grade software development. And now the only thing that should cause you stress or burnout or anything like that has to do with your expectation on other people, because you are now doing what is necessary. You've already reached you're like, it's like being in shape. Like, you are now in shape, and some people kind of just look at themselves and go, yeah, actually I look pretty good now. And some people make it an insane thing, and then they say, well, yes, but it could be better, and then they try to spend their entire life becoming like this sort of ideal physique type of person, where like it's almost like it becomes an obsession to the point where it goes from something healthy to something unhealthy. And you can do the same thing if you're not careful, and that usually is like the performance anxieties, and like when you try to take things to the next level. So try to watch out for that, because if you can just get to a point where you feel as if, yeah, this is as much pressure I can put on myself now without feeling bad, then you're in a very good spot mentally. And now, in order to deal with a lot of the other things that have a stress-inducing effect on you, like what I like to do is that I follow the basic guidelines as anybody who is probably read like a health magazine does. You mean sleep well, make sure that you're drinking enough, make sure that you're eating nutritious, good food, and then make sure that you have a training regimen and like you get some of that pent up anxieties and like all of this stuff. Like your body, it's been proven many times that physical exercise, it doesn't have to be something extreme. You probably noticed that I do a lot of walking or so forth. That's not all the exercising I'm doing, but these sorts of things are a given. To create a routine around this, make sure that you wake up every morning at the same sort of time and do all these sorts of tasks, because I can promise you it does have a positive mental effect on you. So with that said, I still want to draw you back to making sure that you understand what it is about your environment that is causing you the burnout and the stress. Because as I said, if you've gotten the first thing right, if you know that you can produce professional grade software and at the level which most of the industry is expecting, then the only thing that is left is that your boss or your project or the people around you are causing you all of this stress and anxiety. And then you have to start asking yourself, why are they causing you this stress and anxiety? So that is a bit of a soul-searching journey where if you get to sort of the level where, well, at my level, the things that I have come to realize is that I used to think that I could fix everything by just being a better coder, or I would be able to just convince people and so forth and so forth. And I got very stressed over the fact that things weren't moving as fast as I would like. And then I sort of realized that the reason why it's not moving as fast as I would like has very little to do with that it can't. It has to do with that there are people in my way. Or there are people who have a different opinion. There are people who have and when you realize that the reason why we can't do a lot of stuff has nothing to do with that there is no technical way of doing it. It is that you have to convince all these people to do the same thing. And unfortunately, sometimes you're going to deal with people who either don't agree and are very smart, but I usually find that smart people do agree on many things. It's usually the idiots that are the problem. And so, unfortunately, they have a right to be idiots. And when you get to that realization, it became, at least for me, a bit of a relaxing moment, because I realized that I have to approach these sorts of people in exactly the same way I approach children. Where if you want to teach your child mathematics, the way to do that is not to get angry with the child for not understanding addition and subtraction and all this stuff. You have to realize that this is going to take time. And it sucks, because it would be great if you could just skip all this and get directly to, the advanced stuff that you might want your child to learn or so forth and so forth. But your child is your child, and they are who they are. And no amount of frustration on your end is going to change that. So if you really want to solve that problem, you sort of have to understand how to get to where you need to go with this specific person, or circumvent it or so forth. There are other ways than frustration. And when you realize that you can solve these sorts of problems without building up a lot of stress and anger and frustration over the fact that people, over this, it becomes a lot of relief. At least it became for me. It's sort of like there's always going to be these sorts of issues, right? But when you stop thinking about them when you stop having the expectation that you're just going to be able to walk through this without any problem, and you sort of more look at it like being a cleaner or something like that, where if it's a really messy, shitty place you're gonna fix, sure, it's gonna take longer, but when you're done, well, it's going to be nice. You're going to get paid for doing it, regardless of if it's you get paid. Well, I'm not a cleaner, but I hope you understand the analogy when I say that it would not matter if there's one really messy place to clean, or if there's 10 smaller places which is not as so messy, that will go faster, because you're still putting in the same amount of work, if that makes sense to you. So what I want you to take away from this is that the way that I reduce stress is, first and foremost, of course, do all the normal healthy things that you should be doing. Make sure that you're eating right, exercise, make sure that you take care of your body, like spend time with friends, do all these sorts of relaxation exercises. There's so much in this area, guys. Holy shit, there's a lot of stuff. These things are very important. And then the first foremost thing you should do is to get to understand yourself a little bit and realize when you've reached a point where you can meet all the expectations now. You don't have to be the best in the world at everything. You don't have to prove yourself to anybody, because if you can deliver within the deadlines and you can do the things that are expected of you, you have you checked your box. You are now a unit of a software developer, and anything that would remain is usually down to other people. And here's the kicker about that. As I said, when you get to realize that other people are who other people are, just as some people are smarter, some people are dumber, some people are taller, shorter, fatter, thinner. Like, we are all different in our own way, all right? And when you stop thinking in terms of that other people are getting in your way or so forth, and you start to just think about it as, well, this is just another job, just as anything, and you stop thinking in terms of, well, if we just removed all of these people, we could just get to where we want to go, or rather where you want to go, faster. When you realize that the problem is that your expectation is that things should go faster. When you stop caring about how fast you get there, as long as you're making progress in the right direction, if you can get to a point where you're happy just doing that. Think about scientists or politicians or so forth, maybe, or some minority groups. Do you have any idea how long it took for people who like minorities to get to sort of the same rights, or how women have fought over generation to get voting rights, or how some scientists, like, their entire life gets spent just maybe creating one line of a mathematical equation that will help the next generation to take the next step, right? Your anger and frustration is usually down to that you can't get the thing that you want immediately. And when you sit back and realize that, well, maybe it's not the best idea to just get angry in this situation. Maybe the idea is better. It's a better idea to approach it as a kindergarten teacher. Sit down with all these people who are blocking your path, and just see if you can get them to agree that this is the direction that you want to go. Because if you do that, well, then maybe we can start talking about getting to where we want. Or maybe the person who takes the job after you is going to be able to do it. Who knows? At the end of the day, you still get paid regardless of if you get angry over the situation or if you try to do your best to move it in the right direction. Have a great day.